Have you ever stopped to consider if the things you do almost without thinking, your everyday skills could be incredibly valuable, even in situations you'd maybe never expect?
Hmm.
We've been exploring some fascinating personal stories that really make you wonder about this, especially when people step into uh, very different cultural contexts.
That's right. We've been looking at firsthand accounts from individuals who took these short-term mission trips to Honduras and Guatemala.
Okay.
And what's really striking in their reflections are the initial doubts they had about how useful they could even be.
Right, like what can I do?
Exactly. And then the surprising needs they actually encountered, and ultimately the truly remarkable ways their seemingly ordinary abilities became, well, essential.
And for you, our listener, the learner, this deep dive isn't necessarily about, signing up for an overseas trip right now.
No, not at all.
Think of this more as a chance to see the inherent worth of your own unique talents in maybe a new light. We're going to explore how those everyday capabilities can create extraordinary impact when you're just open to serving, often in ways you haven't even imagined. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Well, interestingly, we often see people really underestimate how their regular skills can be applied in unfamiliar settings. It happens all the time.
Mm,
One of the stories that stood out was about a teacher. Now, she was clearly making a difference in her students' lives day in, day out,
sure.
but she often questioned her overall purpose. Does this really matter in the big picture?
That's relatable, I think. Feeling like the daily grind isn't significant.
Right, but it really highlights how the roles we sometimes consider ordinary can have such a deep and lasting effect. It
Mm.
makes you think about how we sometimes undervalue just consistent contributions.
Yeah, like even if you don't see immediate grand results, the actual daily work of nurturing growth in others, whether it's students or colleagues or whoever,
Hmm.
it has that ripple effect. Definitely. Absolutely. And then there was that trip to Guatemala you mentioned, the one with the plumbers and electricians.
Oh, yes. That was a great example. They
Yeah.
were on the team, and initially, they were really unsure how their very practical trades would fit in. Are we just here to hammer nails kind of thing?
Right. Not the typical missionary skill set, maybe.
Perhaps not what they first pictured.
Yeah.
But it turned out their expertise in construction and repair was absolutely crucial. Foundational, even.
Needed skills.
Desperately needed. And there was even this funny little side story, a bit of friendly competition about who could lay the best concrete.
Ah, really?
Yeah, that very sort of human element bridging the cultures.
That's great. It really underscores how universal some human experiences are, and it shows how those tangible skills meet very real needs pretty much anywhere.
Exactly. And then there's the really compelling story of Scott. Scott was the computer expert,
Ah, okay. The tech guy.
the tech guy. And he openly wondered if his skills would even be relevant in what he sort of perceived as a, quote, third world setting, a less technologically advanced environment.
That's a common assumption, maybe.
I think so. And on top of that doubt, he faced immediate challenges, allergies acting up, a family situation back home needing attention.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't an easy start for him.
Not at all. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we limit ourselves based on our own assumptions about what's needed, maybe even in our own communities?
Yeah, you can almost feel his initial discouragement thinking, am I even supposed to be here? What am I doing?
Exactly. But this is where it gets really interesting. Scott discovered that the computer systems at the YWAM base where they were staying were in complete chaos, just utter disarray. No one really knew how to operate them properly, let alone fix the broken ones.
Ah, so the assumption about technology not being relevant was wrong.
Completely wrong. His very specific technical skills, the ones he doubted, were exactly what was desperately needed at that moment. And get this, the computers he repaired. They were apparently still functioning over a decade later.
No way. 10 years.
Over 10 years. It really speaks volumes about the lasting impact of his, supposedly irrelevant contribution.
That's incredible. It's such a great reminder that, in a world increasingly reliant on technology, those skills are valuable almost anywhere, aren't they?
Absolutely. Foundational technical skills are often overlooked until something breaks down.
Right. Okay, so moving beyond those perhaps more obvious practical skills like plumbing or computers, we encountered the story of Patrick. He was an electrical engineer.
Yes, Patrick. And he even described his knowledge as somewhat esoteric, specialized. He didn't think it was necessarily useful for the mission field either.
Another case of doubting the applicability of his skills.
Exactly. And this really raises that important question about our assumptions, doesn't it? What constitutes useful skills in different contexts?
So what happened with Patrick?
Well, Patrick, with his deep understanding of electrical systems, made some, frankly, alarming discoveries at the YWAM base.
Alarming how?
Ungrounded water heaters in the dorms.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's not good.
Not good at all. I mean, think of an ungrounded appliance. It's almost like a live wire potentially being exposed.
Yeah.
Normally, excess electricity has a safe path to the ground.
Right. The ground wire.
But without that, it can lead to a dangerous shock if someone touches it, especially, in a wet environment like a shower.
Yikes.
And he also found exposed, uninsulated power lines just running where they shouldn't be.
That sounds incredibly dangerous. So his esoteric engineering knowledge wasn't just about fixing something minor.
No.
It was absolutely crucial in preventing potentially serious harm. I mean, electrocution risk.
Precisely. It highlights how vital that often overlooked expertise can be for just basic safety.
It wasn't traditional missionary work, maybe not what he expected to do.
Not at all. But it was absolutely essential service, making the place safe for everyone there.
Okay, so then we have Peter. He was the construction logistics expert.
Right. Peter's story is interesting in a different way. He really struggled initially with the different pace of life, what he called Guatemala time.
Ah, the cultural adjustment.
Yeah. And the seemingly, to him, inefficient way a simple chapel was being built. He was used to schedules, efficiency, getting things done.
I can definitely relate to that feeling sometimes, wanting to bring order and efficiency to a situation.
Me too. So we've seen how practical skills, technical skills can have this unexpected impact. But what about skills that are less tangible, like interpersonal abilities maybe? Peter's experience shed some light there.
Okay, so how did he navigate that frustration with the pace?
Well, that's the key. His initial frustration, thankfully, gave way to a deeper understanding. He started to realize that alongside the physical construction, hammering nails and pouring concrete, there was this significant emphasis on building relationships.
Ah, so the inefficiency had a purpose.
It seems so. The seemingly slow pace wasn't just inefficiency. It was about connecting with the local people, learning their stories, sharing meals, forming lasting bonds. That was just as important as the building itself, maybe more so.
That makes sense.
So he learned the value of building relationships alongside the construction. He left not just with, a partially completed chapel, but with a whole network of new friends and connections.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective, isn't it? It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things we build aren't physical structures at all.
Exactly. They're the human connections.
And this leads us perfectly, I think, to the story of Paula. Paula, the hairdresser in Honduras.
Yes, Paula.
Now, she felt completely out of place on a medical brigade. I mean, you can see why, right? What could a hairdresser possibly contribute to a medical mission?
Right. Again, it just challenges our preconceived notions of what's needed or valuable.
So what does she end up doing?
Well, Paula, feeling a bit lost and unsure how to help, just decided to offer what she could do. She offered free haircuts to the women in a local village they were visiting.
Okay. Interesting approach. How did that go over?
The response was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Just overwhelming. It wasn't about medicine, obviously, or evangelism in the sort of direct, traditional sense.
Sure.
But it became this incredible bridge between her and the local women.
Wow. So a simple haircut.
A simple haircut.
Yeah.
Her act of just offering the service she was skilled at, it conveyed care. It conveyed personal dignity, especially across the language barrier.
I can see that. It's personal attention. It's making someone feel seen.
Exactly. And it built trust. It opened doors for deeper conversations later, for sharing the team's purpose, for the medical team to connect better. Her unexpected gift really paved the way for connection in a way that maybe more traditional methods hadn't in that moment.
It's just a beautiful illustration, really, of how something seemingly unrelated, almost mundane, can become profoundly meaningful in the right context. Now, these individual stories, they really seem to connect to a broader message, don't they? This idea that, well, maybe God calls everyone, but the where and the how can look incredibly different for each person.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how each of these stories sort of answers that initial question we pose: can our everyday skills be exactly what we're meant to be doing, even in unexpected places?
Yeah.
And one of the sources we looked at actually references Acts 1.8 in the Bible, the idea of being witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and, to the ends of the earth.
Right. So that implies the scope can be local, regional, or global.
Precisely. It highlights that the scope of our calling, our mission field, can vary greatly. It's not always some distant land.
Okay.
And the text also outlines some key characteristics that might indicate a potential calling.
Hmm.
It suggests it's not just a fleeting feeling or a whim.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What are some of those defining factors they mentioned?
Well, first, there's often a sense of being compelled or kind of pressed in. It's not necessarily an audible voice, but more of a persistent conviction.
Like a burden.
Yeah, a burden for a particular issue or a group of people, something that you just can't easily ignore. It keeps coming back to you.
Okay, what else?
There's also usually a more concrete call, maybe not super detailed, but pointing towards a specific people or a region or a particular task.
So not just a vague desire to do good, but something more focused.
Right. It could be a calling to use your specific skills, like Scott's computer knowledge or Patrick's engineering, to address a known problem or need.
Makes sense.
Then there's often a willingness to endure hardships, maybe make sacrifices. You see that in Scott's story with the allergies and family issues.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
And finally, a deep desire to testify, to share something, and to complete a purpose. It distinguishes it from just, say, wanting an interesting vacation or a change of scenery.
That sense of compulsion, that pressed-in feeling you mentioned, seems really key then. It's more than just a good idea. It's this inner drive, this conviction.
Exactly. And the text even makes a point of saying that feelings, emotional highs or lows, are actually a minor aspect compared to that deeper sense of being called or compelled.
That's a really crucial point, I think. It's not always about feeling warm and fuzzy or inspired every single moment.
No, it's often about that persistent sense of direction, even when things are tough or mundane.
So bringing this back around to you, the learner listening in, we really hope this encourages you to reflect on your own skills, your passions, your experiences. Has there ever been a time in your life where you maybe underestimated the value of something you can do, something you're good at?
Think about it. That mission field, as we've seen, might not be some far-flung location. It could be right where you are.
Totally. In your community, your workplace, even your own family.
Yeah. It's about recognizing how your unique abilities, the things that make you you, can be used to serve and connect with others.
Both in the ways you might expect and, as these stories show, maybe more often than not, in completely unexpected ways.
Hmm. Can you think of a problem or a need in your own sphere where a seemingly unrelated skill you have might actually offer a solution or just a help?
That's a good question to ponder.
And interestingly, the common thread in all these stories isn't really about possessing some specific missionary skill set that you have to go out and acquire.
Right. It wasn't like they all needed theological training or something specific.
No. Instead, it was much more about being open, being willing to utilize the talents and skills they already had.
Recognizing that even those seemingly ordinary abilities, like teaching or fixing things or cutting hair or organizing projects,
Or understanding electrical wiring.
right, can be extraordinarily valuable in the right context.
The key takeaway, really, from all these experiences seems to be faithfulness. Just
Hmm.
faithfulness.
How so?
A willingness to step out, offer what you have, even if you're feeling a bit unsure like Paula did, or have initial doubts like Scott or the engineers. Just showing up and being willing.
So what does all this mean for us, for you listening?
Well, maybe it raises an important question for you to consider as we wrap up.
Okay.
What seemingly small or everyday skill do you possess that, if you offered it with a genuine spirit of service, might open some unexpected doors? Or maybe make a far bigger difference than you currently imagine?
That's a powerful thought. What unconventional mission field, big or small, nearby or far away, might be waiting for your unique contribution, your specific way of helping?